A scandal worse than Watergate has now detonated D.C. A new cabinet now proposed. Names have been named. Trump explodes. Do you know all the details of what just broke loose? Because I'm going to bring it to you here in just 1 minute. So who is calling the shots? Who was calling the shots? Explosive revelations now coming out. A shadowy inner circle being dubbed Politburo, running the White House. Oh, the names are out. The list has been put out, and this is just the very tip of the iceberg as details are being exposed. Trump jumps in with a Truth Social post that may have just connected all the dots. So buckle up, because this one is truly explosive. Before we get there, I don't know if you saw this on the New York Times. Democrats 6 months later are searching for the path forward. A survey was taken. I think it was about 250 people. And they asked to liken the political parties to animals. And Democrats came up as tortoises, slugs, and sloths, and Republicans the apex predators of lions, tigers, and sharks. So, of course, they have to find a Democrat to ask, are you slow, plodding, and passive? And the answer? Well, just want to prove the point entirely.
Democrats are typically tagged as tortoises, slugs, or sloths, slow, plodding, passive. And then a little bit later, there was a respondee who said the Democrats are like a deer in headlights. How is it that you think that the Democratic Party has earned these descriptions?
What do you call a three-humped camel?
Pregnant.
Sorry, I couldn't resist. Actually, the answer is a bit more laughable than even that clip, because rather than answering the question, what did the Democrats do? Oh, they lash at their own voting base. No, you can't even make it up. It's sometimes better than the movie clips are.
I will tell you, it was the voters who were making the comparison with animals, and this was a focus group. It wasn't the New York Times reporter coming up with these labels. This was a Democratic-led focus group to try to figure out perceptions of the parties.
Don, you said they were asked to compare the parties, so they were prompted to compare the parties to animals. That is ridiculous. I've watched a lot of focus groups, and I know that the people that I represent want me fighting for the humans.
They want me fighting for the humans. Oh, just absolute brilliance there. Would we expect much else from Democrat Debbie Wasserman Schultz, to be more specific? Of course not. That's what we get. We've come to be accustomed now to resistance. Resistance against everything Trump does, and then he's got a breaking scandal to now contend with. GAO finds, this isn't a scandal, GAO finds DOT funding, pause on electric vehicle charging is illegal. Okay, the GAO. Just so we're clear, Russ Vought comes out, love this response. Over the next several months, the Government Accountability Office, or the GAO, is a quasi-independent arm, I would argue independent, of the legislative branch that played a partisan role in the first-term impeachment hoax. They are going to call everything an impoundment because they want to grind our work to manage taxpayer dollars effectively to a halt, like everybody wants to stop the progression on the mandate for change that we gave to President Donald J. Trump. You hear me say that every day because that's what's happening. Mike Lee comes out. GAO has lost credibility as an independent body. Marjorie Taylor Greene comes out, states that the GAO part of the deep state resistance. Why are they stating that? Why are they declaring war on the GAO? Because there is a multitude of funding investigations in front of them, 39 to be more specific. Now, what impact did they have on the entire process, you might ask? Well, they had a big impact here when they made the decision that Trump illegally stopped funding to Ukraine, and hence the impeachment began. So yeah, they can have a slight impact if the members in Congress support what the GAO is recommending. However, right now, what impact will they have? With Republicans somewhat in control, if you want to call them all Republicans, which I don't, the reality is probably not much at all. So they could put out these recommendations till they're blue in the face. Does anybody have to do anything about it? No. Just so you get a context to the story. The U.S. GAO said Thursday the U.S. DOT's pause on funding for the Biden administration electric vehicle charging program is illegal under the 1974 law restricting a president's ability to block or impound money appropriated by Congress if Congress decides to take up the recommendation. Because Trump wanted to stop the EV rollout, which was a disaster to begin with. How many actual charging stations did the Biden administration build? I know we have one of Biden's projects in, well, my home city right now. It's a project that never seems to end, that lingers on through poorly done construction in a never-ending cycle of never having the actual road built. It's kind of like the Biden administration in itself. Nothing ever got done. And his projects appear to be no different than that. So don't take too much to the story. Just move on and get used to what the GAO will recommend and not recommend against what the president is doing. So for those of you that know me, know that I have a certain way with my titles so that I can use people's self-bias in interpreting what they mean. Now, the scandal bigger than Watergate started some time ago, and I've been covering it for you since day one. Who was in charge of Biden's presidency? And the original Sin book put out by Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson really launched everything into the public eye. But now a new set of names is starting to rumble out. And then Trump puts out a Truth Social post. And folks, truly, I don't believe this one's going away anymore. It's running too deep. It's running too rampant through DC, and you can't stop the information coming out. And why? Not because of good investigation. No. Because of those trying to cover their own rear ends, which I've told you from day one, that's how Washington, D.C. works. You won't find out about something until someone else is going to get in trouble for it. The same co-conspirators who now see their own asses on the line will do everything in their power to cover their own posteriors. And what we just saw and what we're witnessing in real time shapes up now what is being called a scandal bigger than Watergate. And it truly is. Because I'm going to play the clips and developments in this case, which now go to show you that the investigation isn't only ongoing, it just hit the accelerator. And who's going to get wrapped up on it is absolutely perfect, because they deserve everything that's coming to them if it is proven. And there's one connection they have to make. And if they don't make this connection, then the case will just disappear. And that's the story I'll bring you in 1 minute. Now, Lisa and I enjoy doing several things. One of them, and that sits at the top of the list, is providing you news, referenced and researched. For those of you who've been here for some time, and I saw it in the comments yesterday, all my references are at restrictedrepublic.com or justusknight.com. No, I don't put them in the description box below, frankly, because then the algorithm reads every single one of the links, and one thing wrong within the links that it misinterprets will downrank my video. So no, I'm not going to put the references in the description box, and there's a reason for that. Trust me, everything I do is for very good reason. Those of you appreciate it, obviously, because the subscriptions continue to grow here. The channel continues to grow. The views continue to grow. So I believe, and I hope you appreciate what we're doing here. If you haven't subscribed, I certainly hope you will. Welcome home to just very black and white news, taking monster topics and crushing them down. The support of the members here, there's a membership button below, has grown every single day since I launched it. And that shows me I must be heading in the right direction. The super thanks provided for the videos that people just go crazy over. Thank you so much. It keeps the lights and cameras on. It helps me to develop this entire studio even more, which is all we want to do, provide you more news. It's why we bought our own news platform, restrictedrepublic.com. Lisa and I run that platform. We took money from no one. We took it out of our own pocketbooks during one of the worst times in American history, the COVID era. We did that with little funding because everything was collapsing, but there were stories that needed to be brought to you, and we couldn't simply bring them anywhere else. So we created a platform where we could, and we continue to do that through today. No commercials, no interruptions, no sponsors, beholden to no one but our audience. It's audience-funded news, the way news was meant to be, true journalism. I need you at restrictedrepublic.com today. Annual and monthly subscriptions available, if I could say that today. And you can cancel anytime via your dashboard if you so wish to, but that audience continues to grow because people found their one source for news. No sports, no cooking, no entertainment, just stone cold hard politics. That's what we do at Restricted Republic, and we want you there today. But now, let's get back to this broadcast. So, Politburo, everybody's hearing this new term. What is it? Here are the members who really were running the Biden White House, according to original sin authors. But we're going to take that further, because I'm not going to take Jake Tapeworm's explanation of anything, except understanding that he's simply trying to cover his rear end because he was one of the ones that are being alleged complicit within the entire scheme of hiding Biden's cognitive decline, and now we find out health decline. The principal policymaking and executive committee of a communist party. That is the definition according to the dictionary, so you know exactly what Politburo means. And it's a strong title to be using, but there's a reason they're using it. Listen in here for 1 minute.
And he's aware of some of what's going on. He might be in denial about it, but he's aware of the fact that they are keeping the cabinet away from him. They are keeping some White House staffers away from him. They are keeping members of Congress away from him. He knows what's going on.
They're certainly keeping the press.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
And they were keeping some of the press, but some of the press knew, and I contest it. Jake Tapper was one of them. So why is he coming out now suddenly disclosing that everyone was kept away from the President of the United States of America, who has to make decisions that affect your and my livelihood and very lives? They go to a 2 a.m. What happens at 2 a.m.? If the world was about to implode, did he have the capability and capacity to contend with it? Well, the answer shouldn't shock you. I'll play it in a second here. But who were these players now being named? Ron Klain was one. Another, Bruce Reed. All coming out of this book. Moving forward to Denellen, which we've talked about many times, and Steve Ricchetti, amongst many other senior staffers. Now the names are out. Explosive allegations, according to the New York Post, have surfaced exposing what could be the most significant political scandal in at least a decade. Jake Tapper, just a second, calls it worse than Watergate. Sources claim that unelected officials in the Biden White House, Denellen, Ricchetti, Reed, Bernal, Jill Biden, Hunter Biden, Annie Tomasini, were running the country using an auto pen to sign executive orders and pardons while President Biden was allegedly sidelined by cognitive decline. Did you elect them to do that? Well, the aides think they were perfectly able to do that, and they did it for very nefarious reasons if these explanations hold up to be true. Alex Thompson, co-author of the book.
One of the things that really, I think, comes out in our reporting here is that if you believe, and I think a lot of these people do sincerely believe, that Donald Trump was and is an existential threat to democracy, you can rationalize anything, including sometimes doing undemocratic things, which
So everything was done to stop Trump. Everything today is being done to stop Trump, even doing undemocratic things, which means they knew what they were doing. We can give them the excuse they just believe because Biden was elected, they were elected, but that won't hold up in a court of law, if it ever hits a court of law, right? It's probably your number one question. That's okay. It should be. We could even go further, though, because if you really go into the backstory of this all, you realize that there was a lot of favors done. I think it was Denellen's niece, if I remember correctly, got a job in the administration. Ricchetti's kids got a job in the administration. Reed's daughter got a job in administration. And it was like Halloween at the White House, wasn't it? Pretty much as scary as Halloween, if not scarier. But let's go further in this. Why do I think something will come of this? Because they're not releasing and they're not letting go. Because once you have these names, Republicans, you got to watch out. Because if you don't contend with this, the next election cycle may yield a result that you don't like very much.
What do you say to that, Congressman? Elder abuse.
It is elder abuse. It is. There's no doubt about that. And all of these officials that were in the Biden White House, as far as I'm concerned, they need to come in front of the Oversight Committee because questions need to be answered. Last thing I will say on this is, depending on when the president truly was not in control of his mental faculties, a lot of the stuff that he did as president, in my view, should be invalidated.
And there you go. If you're going to truly defend the rights that we gave President Trump, the mandate for change, then that's going to involve a lot of unwinding of what he may or may not have signed with his own knowledge. Hence, why do I think the Republicans will press this forward into more of the consciousness of America? But what will the results be? Well, I have one major concern already because there's two people not on any of these lists that I want answers from. This is just the beginning of Pandora's box. But you know, for all those who claim the whole deep state thing was just a talking point, well, now aren't you thinking slightly different? Remember, Biden was, quote, aware that they were keeping people away from him. Comforting, isn't it? Even Jake Tapper admits this wasn't Weekend at Bernie's, but, you know, it was kind of matinee hour for the puppet show a little bit. And just when you think the horror story couldn't get any worse, couldn't get any darker, well, Donald Trump's about to have something to say about it. But who would be running the White House in a second Biden term, the question was asked. Well, this person went on to say that when you're voting for a president, you're voting for the aides, and they truly believed that they were in power and authority. A passage in Thompson's book where one anonymous aide argued Biden just had to win, and then he could disappear for 4 years. He only had to show proof of life every once in a while. His aides could pick up the slack. So, in their effort to assure President Trump did not have power or authority, did they violate Constitution or not? Did they violate the law or not? A simple question. I want you to put it below. Because this scandal continues to grow. Cabinet members weren't confident Biden was up to handling what?
Like Ron Klain, were able to steer the Biden administration more to the left of where Biden had been for most of his career. We have Senator Mark Warner in the book, Democrat of Virginia, saying that he, during a foreign policy, national security conversation, they believed that Biden was not really up to snuff on all the issues. We also have Senator Michael Bennet of Colorado, a Democrat, also probably running for governor, believing that Biden's age made him unable to handle the immigration portfolio and all the factions of the Democratic Party, which led to such incoherence with the border and immigration policies.
It's an interesting statement, isn't it? Because if you notice, Biden really wasn't quite as far left as he was before he became president. But afterwards, suddenly these policies shifted dramatically to the left. And now there's senators and other folks coming out and saying, well, it's maybe because he was being influenced or unaware. That's what's being proven out right now. But he goes further in this statement.
But no 2 a.m. phone call came that he couldn't respond to use that example.
Well, we talked to two cabinet members that believed that he wasn't up to that. If the 2 a.m. crisis phone call, they said like maybe he could have done it, but they did not have confidence that he was at every single day capable of responding to a national security crisis at 2 a.m.
And we're just supposed to look by that. The commander-in-chief, according to his aides, may or may not have had the capacity to deal with a national emergency on a moment's notice, and they let it go. Now, what bothers me about this story is there's two men who have not been named yet, Mayorkas and Antony Blinken. Now, they seem to have escaped the long arm of justice so far. Janet Yellen also not named. They're insulated from this story. So don't believe for a moment that the higher-ups in the administration are now going after the lower ranks to assure they take the blame. We'll see as it develops further. This Politburo that they're speaking of, they needed to have the context, the understanding of what it actually is, what it actually represents. And just to say that we weren't aware of this before would be not true. Because there's interview after interview where people signaled that there was trouble. But no one listened. No one showed concern. Here's one example of that.
Yes, he's great when we see him, as we have tonight, but he also has these inexplicable moments that we're very concerned about, and you, Ron Klain, and the First Family, we need to talk about this, and they've been pushed back repeatedly whenever it's been brought up. So we're clearly dealing with two sets of one person.
Wow. Coming from Bernstein himself. He said during that interview he was very stiff, almost like a kind of rigor mortis, that he had cognitive decline. It's been noted for 2 years. And for the last 6 months, more sources have told him that there's been a marked increase in incidents of cognitive decline. So everyone knew this. They hid him from the press, hid him from his own cabinet. And what were they doing when he was on vacation all the time? All makes sense now, doesn't it? So all this leading to the conclusion of something worse than Watergate, according to Jake Tapper himself.
This brings me to your conclusion, which said Joe Biden is not Richard Nixon, and the hiding and the cover-up of his deterioration is not Watergate. I'm not entirely sure I agree, Jake, with that conclusion. I'm not entirely sure.
The next line is it is an entirely separate scandal. It is a scandal.
Yes.
It is without question, and maybe even worse than Watergate in some ways.
Right.
Well, that's a big accusation, huh? So what are the Democrats going to do about it? Oh, don't worry. The cure is more terrifying than the situation itself. The shadow cabinet that can help Democrats win back power. This was published on Politico. Do you want to know who they're suggesting? Oh, I'll just go through a few of the names. Samantha Power, she's had no issues in the past at all, has she? Lena Khan, General Charles Brown Jr., Letitia James, suggested as part of the shadow cabinet. No, I'm not joking here. John Tester, John Boyd Jr., Mark Cuban for Shadow Secretary of Commerce, Bob Olvera Jr., Shadow Secretary of Labor, Governor Josh Green, Shadow Secretary of Health and Human Services, Jeff Speck. We'll go down to Mayor Freddie O'Connell, Mary Barra. How about Governor Katie Hobbs for Shadow Secretary of Education? Coming from Arizona myself, that beyond terrifies me that she would even be recommended. And of course, John Stewart for Shadow Secretary of Veteran Affairs, or Fetterman's wife, Giselle Fetterman. She could run the Homeland Security Department. Oh, you can't make this up. This is actually there on top of Bill Nye, the science guy for Shadow Environmental Protection Agency Administrator. This is their dreamland. This is what comes up and says to them, this is our solution. Ben Stein for Shadow United States Trade Representative, Nikki Glaser. Anybody else we want to go through? So, is that solution even more terrifying than the situation itself? In actuality, no, because I think Politico there is just floating another thing to get more clicks, because anyone who would take that shadow cabinet seriously. But what the Democrats have done, I guess we could take anything seriously now, couldn't we? Oh, and I almost forgot Trump's post, didn't I? Other than, and he goes on about the election in 2020, the biggest scandal in American history is the auto pen. You notice he's done this post after post after post because he's not going to let it go. Whoever used it was usurping the power of the presidency, and it should be very easy to find out who that person or persons is. They did things that a Joe Biden of sound mind would never have done, like open borders, transgender for everyone, men and women's sports, and far more. Fear not. Fear not. We will bring America back bigger, better, and stronger than ever before. And he has done this now almost on a daily basis. The Politburo didn't just advise the presidency. Let me remind you of that. They became it. And if Trump's right, we may be looking at the greatest political fraud in American history. This wasn't about protecting Joe. It was about using his name to rewrite America if all this is proven true. But now the curtain is falling. Names are being named. The puppeteers are being exposed, and Trump's not just watching. Oh no, him and all the investigations will soon give you all the receipts you need to see. His administration and these investigations will be bringing the receipts. If they don't, they will be doing a grand injustice to the American people. And I won't stand for it. No, I'll continue to bring you every development in this story because it is truly, in my opinion, the biggest scandal in U.S. history. If a president was allowed to stay in office and have his officials, his advisors, run the White House, folks, that is everything that our Constitution was here to protect against. This could have destroyed, and in many ways did destroy, the very sovereignty of the great Republic of the United States of America. No one should stand down off of this or simply give up that nothing will be done. If you give up now, what happens if a Democrat is elected into office again? They now know the playbook would have been met with no repercussions. If a Republican is elected again and they do the same, they will know that the playbook was met with no repercussions. And that can't stand. So stay tuned. I'll continue to be here in front of this microphone, giving you these updates as they are made available. I love you all. Now I'm going to kick this into a separate broadcast about Thomas Matthew Crooks. Some amazing, scary, and not exactly connecting the dots information now being released. You see, I guess he was searching for something else. He ordered it online, as a matter of fact, and then inquired why it wasn't there. So this assassin, who was by all accounts a fairly intelligent individual, although had grammatical issues, which I can't even believe people cover because that is not uncommon with someone with rather high intelligence, suddenly does something else. And the media is actually trying to sugarcoat it. And it's a story. If you're at Restricted Republic, just watch my exclusive content today. If you're not, why aren't you there yet? I want you there today. I love you all. And that's only before tomorrow's broadcast, which I am dying to bring my audience, all about the connection between the Golden Dome and AI. A story that nobody's connected the dots on yet. Why now, after his Middle East trip, does Trump, who was focused on AI and very much of the deals he made, come back and suddenly announce Golden Dome? Because, there's a new set of targets out there, because he who controls AI controls the world. But to run AI, you need things on the ground that become a different target for our adversaries, because you can stop AI in its tracks if it doesn't have this to exist. And hence, an announcement of Golden Dome comes out. And I'm going to connect those dots for you. That's going to be tomorrow, which is Thursday, May 29th. Exclusive bombshell post I've worked on for months. I just needed one final piece to connect the dots. And out comes TED Talk, and the statement I've been looking for is said out loud. And I had everything I needed. And that's the story I'll bring you tomorrow. I love you all. Until next time, Godspeed and God bless. Justus Knight, signing out.